How's everyone doing? It's great to see you guys. I want to welcome everyone to the regular meeting of the Police Advisory and Accountability Committee meeting for this Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. We're going to start. I'm going to ask Lieutenant Abley for the roll call, please.
Good evening, Chair Tokolahi. I will take the roll. Vice Chair Davidi is going to be absent today, so alternate member Valdez, you'll be a voting member if there's a vote tonight. Member Alm?
Present.
Member Alvarez?
Present.
Member Kamina?
Present.
Member Nguyen?
Present.
Member Ruiz? Chair Tokolahi?
Present.
And it looks like alternate member Locks is also not here, so she might be late. And alternate member Valdez.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. How's our interpretation? We good?
I will address the interpretation for public comment tonight. Thank you, Chair Tokolahi, again. Before we begin, we would like to announce that tonight's meeting will include Spanish language, simultaneous and consecutive interpretation provided by qualified interpreters on the Spanish channel. If watching on Zoom, you can join the Spanish channel by clicking on the interpretation icon in the Zoom toolbar. It looks like a globe. If you're attending in person and don't have access to the Zoom meeting from your mobile device, please come and see me and I will get you set up with a device or my partner, Teresa, so you can listen to the meeting in Spanish. As a reminder, we ask that everyone participating tonight speak slowly to allow our interpreter to effectively express your comments. I'd now like to invite the interpreter on this channel to read that in Spanish.
Buenas tardes. Antes de comenzar, queremos anunciar que la reunión de esta noche contará con interpretación simultánea y consecutiva en español, proporcionada por intérpretes cualificados en el canal en español. Si está viendo por Zoom, puede unirse al canal en español haciendo clic en el icono de interpretación en la barra de herramientas de Zoom que parece un globo terráqueo. Si está asistiendo en persona y no tiene acceso a la reunión de Zoom desde su dispositivo móvil, por favor visíteme y le ayudaré a configurar un dispositivo para que pueda escuchar la reunión en español. Les recordamos que les pedimos a todos los participantes hablar despacio para que nuestros intérpretes puedan expresar sus comentarios eficazmente.
Thank you. This meeting is being recorded and members of the public watching online or listening by phone can call 669-444-9171 and use the meeting ID 898-5264-7245 and then the pound symbol. There will be an opportunity for public comment for those participating in person. Each person will have 2 minutes to provide their comments. We invite each of you to introduce yourselves by name before presenting your comments. We are offering closed captioning for this evening's meeting on Zoom. Select the live transcript button on the Zoom screen to enable this feature. Thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna move on to approving our regular minute from our last one, which is the minute from April 16. So I want to come back to inviting committee members if any of you have questions regarding our last minute. No? Okay, I'm gonna open up to the public for public comment regarding the regular meeting on April 16th. If any of the public members have any comment regarding the last minute. No? Okay, I'm gonna close public comment. So now I'm gonna have to request a motion and a second to approve our April 16 minutes.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the past minutes from April 16th.
Motion to approve. Any
Second
seconds?
motion?
Any seconds?
Me?
Sorry.
Second motion, yeah.
Thank you. Can-
Yes,
gonna call-
I will
Okay.
call a roll call vote. Member Alm,
Approve.
Member Alvarez,
Approved.
Member Kamina,
Approved.
Member Nguyen,
Approve.
Member Ruiz,
Approve.
Member Valdez,
Approve.
and Chair Tokolahi.
Approved. Thank you. Want to invite the public again for any comments on matters that not listed on the agenda for tonight. Hey, George, can turn it on.
All right, okay. George Pegalo, member of the Marin Community, member of the Marin County Human Rights Commission for 10 years, worked with the county on various issues for 30 plus years. I believe you all received a copy of the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing last month. And I just want to remind you that Chief Spiller implemented that program in Pleasanton and went to Washington, D.C. 9 months after it was published to report on the work that he had done in Pleasanton to the individuals in Washington, D.C. who are following its implementation. That plan offers you a very good overview of a variety of issues that affect law enforcement in this city and all over the United States. I also think it's time for us to have a community discussion on what are our values as a community. It is my personal opinion that to have law enforcement involved with enforcing laws on camping, et cetera, dealing with people who do not have homes is a misuse of police personnel and should be reviewed very carefully. I think that when we move outside of just this narrow range of issues that this group is dealing with and broaden it to the entire community and how we relate to each other as human beings, that is an important aspect to actually look at what does law enforcement represent what our values are? If not, let's take a look at how we can bring that into line with the general concern of the community with the welfare of all. The commitment to the common good needs to be our highest priority, in my opinion. And I recommend a book by Robert Reich called The Common Good, a short book, but an excellent read. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, George.
Good evening, members of the committee and Chief Diller and all of you. I'm Stephen Bingham from San Rafael, and I have a comment that is related but different from the discussion we're going to later have on RIPA. I've had conversations about the use of pretextual stops, which you will see a lot of mention of in the MV3 report. And I believe San Rafael Police consider pretextual stops an important tool. However, in San Francisco, and I made a few copies of this, if you could. Thank you. Thank you. In San Francisco, as you'll see from that report, strongly discourages the use of stops for 9 different offenses. And I won't go through them all because you can look at it for yourself, but such things as expired vehicle tags and other non-dangerous infractions of the vehicle code. And as we all know, George Floyd on down, traffic stops lead to ugly things, and they lead to the statistics that we're going to talk about later on this evening. And I would strongly urge you, committee people, to actively not just receive information, but you have a certain power to go to the city council and make demands and requests. And the police department can't implement something like this on its own. It should probably be an ordinance by the city of San Rafael. You have the power to get that started, and I strongly urge you to do so. It is the singular thing that reduces unnecessary stops that traditionally, as we'll see later, are disproportionately affecting people of color. But it's also, they're leading to
Thank you.
dangerous situations where people get injured and killed. Thank you.
Thank you. Can the staff, before we continue with the public meeting, is there a way to put up the 2 minutes on the screen? Because I don't,
We're trying, it is up there when she puts it on there, and it turns red, but let's see if we can maybe make a sound that will also alert you as well.
thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Heidi, nice to see you on this lovely Wednesday night. I wanted to talk about a little bit about what happened with drones as first responders last time, and to acknowledge that it's the first time that this committee has voted on something in support of the police department getting some additional equipment. And we had a really nice turnout of residents from the canal supporting drones as first responders. What I want to encourage you all to do is, it's clear that the sales pitch we heard at that meeting was also given to Voices del Canal, and that's why a dozen people from that organization showed up. And it was very clear from their comments. I sat there with my heart hurting about people saying, I don't feel safe in my community. I don't feel secure in my community. The police don't show up when we have something scary happening, and we want that to happen. And so I thought about the promises that were made to the community when that sales pitch was given to them. Like, it sounded to me like they were told, you've been asking for faster responses when things that are scary are happening. Like, one member shared about a stabbing where everyone was gone by the time the police showed up. What you all can do is make sure that the promises that were made, the police department wants to clear 911 calls, and they want to make sure that their officers are safe when they're responding. So they're going to send this drone out from the rooftop. The community wants to make sure that they actually get that safety and security that allows their kids to be out and feel okay. And so you all can create those key performance indicators that say, how safe and secure did you feel before drones as first responders, and how safe and secure do you feel after? Have they had the benefit you thought they would have? Are the response times to the canal neighborhood, where residents have shared with me, if they call in and their first language is Spanish, they feel like they aren't treated the same, and they have asked white neighbors to call to get a faster response. So let's make sure that the promises that were made to the community actually come to fruition, and that you can look at that data as the drones of first responders and make sure that the community is getting what they've promised. That's where your role in accountability comes in. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Good evening. My name is Victoria DeWitt. I live in the West End neighborhood. I did submit a letter, so I hope you received it. Yes, good. And this is about a project that the Public Works Department is working on. They want to redesign the intersection of 2nd and 4th Street and Marquard and West End at the west end of San Rafael. And they want to close off access to Marquard from the westbound 2nd Street by closing the left turn lane. This is a major access for our neighborhood. And so they're closing it to all vehicles except emergency vehicles, because emergency vehicles need access to gain access to our hillside. And so because they can't impede the emergency vehicles, the only thing they're doing is putting a raised bumper across the intersection with signage. And cars are going to continue to drive and turn left at Marquard, which is going to create an even more dangerous situation than already exists because there won't be a left turn lane with a left turn signal to control that movement. So I'd really like to meet with a police officer on site. I think it's hard to describe it on paper, but it's easier if you see in person. So I'd really like to meet with a police officer on site to talk about our concerns in the neighborhood and why I think it's a really bad idea for that plan that the Public Works is currently considering. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I see none. I'm going to close public comment. So we're going to move on to, we have two presentations tonight. So we have RIPA and we also have homeless update presentation later on after that. So do we have the RIPA folks here? Okay. Are we ready for them?
I believe Chief Spiller or Lieutenant Everly is going to provide opening. Oh, okay, okay, my apologies. So just briefly, at your last Police Advisory and Accountability Committee meeting, you heard a report regarding RIPA, the Racial Identity Profiling Act. The San Rafael Police Department, in conjunction with the Marin County Sheriff's Office, provided data for the previous year. There were a few items that the committee directed staff to report back on at this meeting, including data on related to traffic citations and mechanical violations. Staff has compiled the requested materials, which are included in attachment 2. In addition, community members requested that a representative from Mill Valley Free return to provide a presentation on their RIPA report. Staff has coordinated this presentation, and I believe representatives, from MV Free, are here to present their materials, which are included in this report as attachment 3. And so with that, I will, I don't know if there are any, I'll turn to my colleagues to see if there are any additional comments. I believe.
I think we're just gonna set up the PowerPoint really quick.
Okay.
And then we'll be available for questions, time for questions.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
I hope this isn't going to fall off of here. Oh, maybe I'll put it on the floor. Tammy Edmondson with MV Free. Thank you so much for inviting us to come here and talk about the use of RIPA data and recommendations to achieve your equitable policing objectives. MV Free has been analyzing Marin County RIPA data and working with the Mill Valley Police Department since 2021 to leverage those that data and recommendations for the community benefit, and it is a tremendous resource. But before I go any further, I do want to acknowledge that many in law enforcement have basically felt like this intensive scrutiny that they're facing under RIPA, I think understandably, feels a little bit like an attack, and they feel a bit defensive about that, and I get it. So before I start, I do want to say this presentation is not an indictment of the San Rafael Police Department. Far from it. The San Rafael Police Department is one of the hardest working agencies in Marin County. They deal with far more serious offenses than the other agencies. They have implemented some important initiatives for safe and equitable policing, notably the SAFE program. So I just ask that as you hear this presentation, keep in mind that the disparities that we're talking about are by no means unique to the San Rafael Police Department. They are, in fact, the same systemic disparities that we see in all Marin County agencies and in over 90% of California police agencies. So our goal here tonight is really to empower the PAC and the SRPD to make use of these incredible resources available under RIPA as part of your ongoing continuous improvement efforts. So about the presentation, I know I gave you a big fat packet of materials. I don't want you to think we didn't hear you last time. I know that what you're looking for is a focused and practical presentation, so I'm going to do my best to offer that. We're going to be presenting just 2 recommendations of what San Rafael can do right now to significantly reduce its racial policing disparities. And then we'll have 2 recommendations, process recommendations, on how you can basically integrate these tools into your ongoing strategic planning processes. I'm going to use those 4 recommendations in this presentation to illustrate the 3 main things that RIPA will enable all of us to do. And this is really critical. The RIPA data enables us to identify disparity concerns in our own jurisdiction. Second, it enables us to target the RIPA recommended remedial strategies to address those concerns. And third, it allows us to establish and monitor performance metrics. So with that, I'm going to move right on to let's get started. Hopefully this will work. I'm told that it just needs to be pointed. We tried this before and it worked. There we go. We passed it. There we go. So as I said, the first question is, how do you identify disparity concerns in your jurisdiction? And this is something, the concerns, patterns, and trends that the PAC asked about at the March hearing. And so if we look at this slide, it shows kind of the big picture in terms of overall stop disparities. I'm sorry that there's a thing blocking it, but these 2 tables show on the left from the 2024 RIPA report, their analysis. On the right, the 2025 RIPA board analysis based on 2022 and 2023 data, respectively. And I'll pause because I know, Fatai, you said, where are the Middle Eastern statistics? The RIPA board disparity findings do not include those because there's not a good benchmark for that population group. But I will say MV-Free has done our best to incorporate that group in our various analyses. And so far, we have not found any racial policing disparities for Middle Eastern people in San Rafael. But anyway, so what you see here, the green bars represent stop rates for Asian people. Blue bars represent stop rates for Latinx people. Red bars represent stop rates for Black people. And the dotted horizontal line on the bottom reflects the stop rate for whites. So in each table, we're comparing San Rafael stop rates on the left with Marin County averages and state averages. As you can see, pardon me, in both tables, San Rafael stop rates for Black and Latinx people are significantly higher than state averages, but lower than countywide averages. There is not a significant change from year to year in San Rafael's Black and Latinx disparities. And so what we're really looking at here is the more important thing is the patterns than the specific numerical calculations. But over two years, what we see is concerning disparities in San Rafael for Latinx people who were stopped between 1.6 and 1.8 times the rate of whites. But for Black people, considerably worse, where they were stopped between 7.1 and 6.4 times the rate of whites. That is a clarion call for action. But of course you say, well, then what are we supposed to do about it? Well, fortunately, RIPA data enables us to dig deeper to identify the causes, disparity causes and conditions so we can tailor the remedial strategies. And what I've listed here is just a sample of some of the appropriate areas of analysis, the calls for service, pretext stops, and detention factors. We ran, I think, all of those for San Rafael Police and discovered a variety of disparities in different areas, some of which you'll see in your resource packet. But for tonight, I'm just going to focus on the two that have the most serious impact on the San Rafael Police's overall stop disparities. And those are the community members' race-based calls for service and the racially disparate pretext stops. We're going to try. Okay, next. Thank you. Turning now to community members' race-based calls for service, which are also known as bias by proxy. So what is the concern? Well, sometimes community members see a person of a different race in their neighborhood and they think that's suspicious. It makes them feel uncomfortable, even though the person is not engaged in any suspicious conduct. So if police respond to those calls, it has the effect of subjecting people to unwarranted police intervention, and it contributes to the law enforcement racial stop disparities. And just an aside, I will say, these are disparities that have nothing to do with officer bias. This is the community members' bias that's causing these. So what does the RIPA board recommend? In 2020, the RIPA board identified a critical need statewide for practical policies to prevent race-based calls for service. They developed detailed policy and training recommendations that do a variety of things. Among them, they help officers identify race-based calls. They protect the subjects of the calls. They educate callers to prevent future such calls, and they ensure that the agencies record and monitor the calls as part of their performance metrics. So really, the model policy is really a rich source of assistance. But does San Rafael need to be concerned about these calls? Well, for that, we want to look at San Rafael's RIPA data. So calls for service in San Rafael account for just over 30% of all San Rafael Police Department stops. And the San Rafael data does show serious racial disparities in these calls, particularly for Black people. San Rafael community members are calling the police about Black people at nearly 10 times the rate they do about white people. And in more than half of those calls, police find no evidence of criminal conduct. Currently, the San Rafael Police Department has no written policy on race-based calls for service, much less one aligned with the detailed RIPA recommendations. Lieutenant Eberly mentioned in his March report that San Rafael does do some training on bias by proxy, and that's absolutely a good first step. But that training is not guided by or aligned with the RIPA recommended policy, nor is it included in the department's mandatory bias-free training policy. That policy, policy 402.7, requires only one anti-bias refresher course every 5 years and no training on bias by proxy. So we would recommend this is our first recommendation. We're going to have 4, remember. 3 easy to implement RIPA recommended strategies, and all of which have been implemented by the Mill Valley Police Department. When MV Free started working with the MVPD in 2021, their data showed that Mill Valley community members were calling the police about Black people at nearly 20 times the rate they did white people. So they were worse off than you are here. MV Free worked with the MVPD to implement these strategies, which resulted in a 25% reduction in call for service disparities in just the first year. So the 3 steps are that adopt a bias by proxy policy modeled on the RIPA recommendations, You'll find a copy of the Mill Valley policy that we helped them develop in your resource packet. Second, Mill Valley is providing regular training and standard operating procedures for bias by proxy that are aligned with that policy. And third, they've committed to educating the community on an ongoing basis. The city of Mill Valley mailed a copy of the flyer that you see here to every household in the city and widely circulated it online and at physical locations. The chief even worked with MV Free to develop a public service video that you can see on the Mill Valley website. The flyer encourages people to consider 3 things before calling the police. Hopefully I can read it from here. 1, do I see behavior that makes me think that someone is committing a crime or endangering someone? 2, if a friend or neighbor were behaving in that way, would I think somebody should call the police? And third, are police the appropriate service providers for this situation? So the complete flyer on the reverse side has a contact information for a wide array of emergency service providers. Again, you'll find a complete copy of the flyer in your resource packet. And I should add that Sausalito has now taken this up and is doing its own public education campaign modeled on this. So MV Free be happy to work with you all to do a policy and a flyer, what have you, that would be suited to your particular needs. I knew I was going to need the water. So turning now to pretext stops, which we kind of touched on at the March meeting. In the context of RIPA recommendations, a pretext stop is a stop based on any minor administrative or equipment infraction. So things like expired registration, lighting infractions, license plate violations. Agencies, law enforcement agencies, typically do not prioritize enforcement or citations for these infractions. That includes San Rafael and most other agencies. But officers do often use these stops as a pretext for an unwarranted investigation. When I say an unwarranted investigation, what I'm talking about is where the officer has no reason to suspect criminal conduct. So the RIPA board recommends banning pretext stops and has been recommending this now since 2019, I think. But because of their proven disparate impact on people of color, their negligible law enforcement benefits, and the burden on law enforcement resources, you'll find that many law enforcement jurisdictions dedicate a surprisingly large amount of their resources to enforcing these or to these stops, but get very little in return. Pretext stops have been eliminated in many jurisdictions without negative consequences, including San Francisco, Los Angeles, many other cities in California and around the country, as well as the states of Virginia, Oregon, and Washington. But again, we want to ask, is this a policy that is a good fit for San Rafael? And to answer that question, we want to look at the RIPA data, but I want to focus on 2 questions because I think it's important that we get the answers to both of them. First, do pretext stops contribute significantly to racial policing disparities in San Rafael? Because if they don't, what do we care, right? But second, if they do, we want to know, can they be eliminated? Can you eliminate pretext stops without undermining important law enforcement objectives? So that's what we're going to look at. So pretext stops in San Rafael amount to just 12% of all San Rafael stops. Pretty small number compared to a lot of jurisdictions, including the Sheriff's Department, where over half of all of their stops are pretext stops. But despite the low overall percentage, because the disparities in San Rafael pretext stops are high, they do have a significant impact on the overall racial stop disparities. As you can see in the middle chart, Latinx people are subject to pretext stops in San Rafael at 2.6 times the rate of white people. And no pointer. It's the blue line is Latinx stops 2.6 times the rate of white people. And Black people are subject to pretext stops in San Rafael at 15 times the rate of white people. But you still got to wonder, what's the impact on overall stop disparities? And that's where we ran the numbers and we found the data shows that eliminating pretext stops in San Rafael will result in a 14.2% reduction in all Latinx stops and result in a nearly 18% reduction in all Black stops. Okay, so huge impact, huge potential benefits, but now the second question, can these stops be eliminated in San Rafael without sacrificing law enforcement objectives and outcomes? And every law enforcement agency, and I'm sure we could hear it here, has an anecdote about pretext stops. You know, we pulled a guy over for an expired registration, we found a pound of cocaine or some other serious criminal behavior. But when you look at the data, it shows that actually pretext stops are an incredibly unproductive law enforcement activity, not just in San Rafael, but throughout Marin County and around the state. So the right-hand chart there shows what the evidence in San Rafael shows, which is that in San Rafael, over 95% of all pretext stops uncover no evidence of criminal conduct. In 2023, about half of the criminal conduct that was found consisted of outstanding warrants. A tiny fraction, 0.6%, uncovered evidence of a burglary or theft offense. And then the remainder was a mix of drugs, alcohol, and a category where the officers did not put a description. So we're just, you know, anybody's guess. So what that tells us is that pretext stops are looking for broken taillights is obviously not a productive way of tracking down outstanding warrants or other criminal conduct. I say to anybody who will listen, and only half facetiously, that if California law enforcement gave up pretext stops and just started stopping all blue cars, we would all be better off. Why? Because stopping all blue cars would find just as much criminal conduct as pretext stops, but it would not come along with the racially disparate impacts of pretext stops. So finally, I do want to acknowledge that some people say, well, yeah, but what about the infractions themselves? You know, you got a broken taillight, you got an expired registration. Isn't enforcing those important enough to continue pretext stops? And to that, I have two responses. First, the evidence shows that in San Rafael, as in most jurisdictions, most of the time, the officers are not enforcing or prioritizing these stops. 72% of the time, the officers do not issue a citation for the underlying offense. But second, even if San Rafael or another jurisdiction decided we want to prioritize equipment violations, they can easily do so by getting a license plate number and mailing a citation. As the RIPA board has repeatedly said, there is no need to subject people to racially inequitable and dangerous stops by armed police officers for these minor infractions. So that leads to our second recommendation. We recommend that San Rafael implement a pilot program, a one-year pilot program, eliminating pretext stops as recommended by the RIPA board. This would enable you to test and confirm the findings that we've just discussed. If at the end of the year you find, hey, bad idea, you can always turn around. But we've included a sample policy in our resource packet from the San Francisco Police Department. I think it was referenced by one of the earlier speakers, but we're also happy to work with you on a policy for a pilot program that might be more tailored to San Rafael's needs. The San Francisco policy is probably more complex than what you need. Okay, we talked about using RIPA to identify disparity concerns in your jurisdiction. We talked about using RIPA data to target RIPA recommended remedial strategies. That leaves one important function, and that is establishing and monitoring performance metrics. So the RIPA disparity analysis provides a clear performance metric for evaluating equitable policing strategies. The disparity findings that I've talked about today in calls for service and pretext stops, as well as in the overall stops, provide a solid baseline for future comparisons. Once RIPA recommended remedial strategies are in place, you can set annual benchmarks that lead towards your equitable policing goals. So for example, in the case of pretext stops, we said the data showed that eliminating the stops would immediately reduce Latinx stops in San Rafael by 14.2% and would reduce Black stops by nearly 18%. So these would be reasonable benchmarks for your annual equity assessment. For race-based calls for service, we noted that Mill Valley, using the 3 recommendations that we've offered, reduced calls for service disparities by 25% in the first year. So that would be a reasonable benchmark in that area. At the next annual equity assessment, if you find that you're not meeting those benchmarks, you can take a closer look at the data all the way down to the individual officer level. I mean, the information is incredibly rich, and that can help you to revise and target your strategies as needed. So we hope you will enact the RIPA recommended strategies to address the racial inequities in San Rafael calls for service and pretext stops, but that's only a first step. This presentation has used these examples to demonstrate how you can use your RIPA data and resources to map a course for continuous improvement that can make San Rafael a leader in safe and equitable policing. In some ways, therefore, this is the most important recommendation. Pardon me. Establish an annual RIPA equity assessment at the San Rafael Police Department. The annual assessment should include 4 steps that we've illustrated in this presentation. First, you'll monitor your progress on existing strategies. Second, you'll identify additional disparity concerns. RIPA data covers a wide range of police practices beyond the things we've talked about here tonight, and also a range of different identity groups. So you can use your annual equity assessment to gradually expand your areas of analysis until you're satisfied that you've addressed all potential areas of concern. Our resource packet contains a subsection titled Other Areas of Concern that can help you get started on that element. The third step, target, assess, and revise remedial strategies as appropriate. Again, in our resource packet, you'll see a section of selected RIPA recommendations, and we think that's another good place to start for this third element. And fourth, you establish new performance metrics that you'll be using for the year to come. Last slide. Yay, everybody says. Oh, yeah, that's right. I was ready to say there's another one. So I know it's been a lot of information, so I want to just recap the 4 RIPA-based recommendations that we've offered. The 2 most impactful things that you can do right now to reduce Black and Latinx policing disparities in San Rafael are 1, adopt the RIPA-informed strategy used by the Mill Valley Police Department to address race-based calls for service. And 2, implement a pilot program eliminating pretext stops in San Rafael. Then going forward, you can leverage the data and resources available under RIPA as they were intended by doing these two things: establish and monitor performance metrics and conduct an annual RIPA equity assessment. So I really appreciate you listening and hope you'll consider these important issues. I'm happy to answer any questions, not just tonight, but to be a resource for the police department, for the PAC, for any one of you who wants to just chat about this stuff. And before I stop, though, I do want to call your attention to one section of the resource packet titled SRPD Reasons for Stops. We prepared this in response to the same questions that the PAC asked at the March meeting about the most common reasons for stops by race. The analysis you got from the SRPD does that, and this just expands on that, I think. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Chair, one moment. Can we toggle the interpreters?
Sure.
We're all set. Thank
We
you.
good? Okay. Thank you for the presentation. I'm going to bring it back to the committee members, and I want to start from my right. If you have any questions.
No, I don't have any question, but thank you for your presentation. It was like, I could understand everything. So that's, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah.
So, Alvarez,
No comments, just thank you for your presentation.
thank you. No questions?
Can you differentiate for me warranted versus unwarranted pretext stops?
Yes. When I said unwarranted stops, I would say all pretext stops that are used for what I was saying is it's an unwarranted investigation that follows a pretext stop. That would be an investigation into something that the officer has no reason to suspect. So for example, you get pulled over for a broken tail light and the officer says, "So where are you headed?" Shines the flashlight into the car. It says, this is in abbreviated form. You may end up being asked to step out of the car. You may be asked for consent to search. It's kind of an opportunity for them to just feel around to see if they can come up with some evidence of criminal conduct. If there is a reasonable suspicion of criminal conduct, say the car had been weaving, or say that the officers recognized either the driver's description or the description of the car as having been matching the description of something involved in a crime, those are not pretext stops. Those are stops based on a reasonable suspicion. And nobody's suggesting that you get rid of those.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I found it very illuminating and very interesting. I have comments for that section later, but I do have a similar question to Member Alms. Just from my background and experience, to me, a pretext stop is when officers or investigators suspect a person of doing one crime and they use the traffic violation to stop that person and then investigate the crime they're suspicious of. It sounds to me like, and please correct me, that are you saying that any equipment violation is a pretext stop? I'm unclear because
Yes.
in my mind, a pretext stop, is a very specific thing. And on the other hand, if an officer sees like if I were driving and I had a taillight and they stopped me, that would be an equipment stop, but not a pretext.
The,
Do you under? am
yeah,
being
I
clear?
understand what you're saying. From the RIPA board's perspective, what they found is that, as we found in San Rafael, people are being stopped for equipment violations when there is no intention of enforcing the equipment violations. They're using that stop as a pretext to conduct an investigation for which there is no reasonable suspicion. So that's what makes it a pretext stop, is the absence of a reasonable suspicion. What the RIPA board recommends is, yes, eliminating all stops for administrative and equipment infractions, right? And they say, you know, if you want to, you can always take the license plate and mail a citation. But if the officer in your hypothetical actually has a basis to believe, hey, I think this is the guy who robbed that bank down there, so I'm going to pull him over for the taillight, he shouldn't do that. What he should do is say, I have a reasonable suspicion that this guy was involved in the bank robbery, and I'm pulling him over for that. And he absolutely has the authority to do that. That is not a pretext stop. I think you would agree that it's a reasonable suspicion stop is a standard thing that they track in RIPA.
I think so. I have one more question. Actually, never mind. I'll put it in my comments. But I thank you for your explanation.
Thank you. Member Ruiz? No questions? Member Locks?
Yes, I have. Can you hear me? I don't hear myself. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. I have a question. It's gonna kind of throw everybody off. In light of the May 15th decision by the U.S. Supreme Court about the use of force and their concern, and it was unanimous vote, they're concerned about the dangers of these stops, these traffic stops. The fact that the Supreme Court has had a decision about that, how does that affect all of what we're talking about tonight as far as implementing policies, doing the pilot study, and so forth, as from your perspective? Thank you.
You know, I mean, the pretext stops have been upheld from against a constitutional challenge. So they are not unconstitutional. But I'm glad you asked that question, because you get to something that gets lost in all of these statistics. And that is, the reason we're concerned about this is because we know that people of color are suffering serious harms as a result of this over-policing. And again, I'm not saying that it's intentional. I'm not even saying that it's necessarily due to officer bias. But when you pull somebody over and you have a gun on your hip, it creates a danger. And we do know that right now in the United States, 3 people are killed by police every day. And Black people are 3 times as likely as white people to be killed. And the majority of those killings start with traffic stops and other nonviolent interactions. And the majority of those stops take place in rural and suburban areas, not unlike Marin County. So there's a tendency to think, hey, this couldn't possibly happen here. It's something on the television. But it can happen here. It's tremendously dangerous. And even if people are not physically harmed, the emotional scarring in our communities of color from having this sense that they are constantly thought of as suspicious, it's something they carry with them. You know, I didn't bring the data on it, but if you look at just the number of police stops in Marin County in a single year, they equal 1/3 of the entire Black population of Marin County. So if you compare that to the 5% the stops for white people equals 5% of the white population. If you look like me, you're not experiencing this, but those who experience it find that it's horribly damaging and unforgettable.
Thank you. I do have one questions. In your presentation, you mentioned, so we have 3 recommendations regarding bias by proxy, and then you also present 4 recommendations on the pretext stops. Was there you mentioned 4
No.
on the by proxy? Was
Okay,
there
that-
4?
no,
That's just the.
Sorry, I give you too many numbers. Let me just say this. I look at the recommendations on the calls for service as one recommendation. That recommendation is adopt the process that has worked so well in Mill Valley. On pretext stops, there's one recommendation, and that is do a 1-year pilot program to eliminate pretext stops. The other 2 recommendations are just process recommendations. That's use the
It's
metrics.
the process, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Good clarification. Yeah.
That all?
Okay, I'm gonna, thank you
Thank you.
so much. So I'm gonna open up to the public, for comments. Any comments on the presentation?
One. George Pegalo again. This is an example of how a community organization interfacing with a local government can be powerfully effective in changing policy. We should have this kind of stuff happening far more frequently, not just with MV Free, but with schools, young people getting involved in city governments by creating work groups that can look at how police relate to youth, et cetera, et cetera. This kind of report is valuable. It costs you nothing. It was done by MV Free, which is an outstanding organization. I think we should push this all over the county. And in the city of San Rafael, which is the pace setter here, keep on trucking. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Good evening. Again, Stephen Bingham, San Rafael. Excellent presentation. Real food for thought. I just have one quick thing to add to it. The city of Berkeley has not done it yet, but they have had a bill and are still working on it to create a Department of Traffic that would be similar to the parking division that we see in the little vehicles that run around giving us parking tickets. And it would give them, rather than the police department, unarmed civilian staff the authority to ticket when they drive up and see a parked car with a expired registration. They give them a citation. And the advantage of that in some ways over time is that rather than simply eliminating any mechanism for getting at people who just ignore re-registering their vehicles or whatever, you do have a mechanism. That's obviously a longer discussion, but why not be the first in the state? Berkeley was hoping to be the first in the state, and it still hasn't gelled. But I would encourage you to work with the city council to discuss that as a way to get pretext stops out of the hands of the police department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just wanted to speak quickly on a real life example of how a pretext stop leads to mistrust within law enforcement. And this is a while back, but I was riding in the car with someone of color who was driving, And because he forgot to turn his turn signal on, he was pulled over by the San Rafael police, and not necessarily knowing our rights, and even more so being intimidated by law enforcement when the officer came to the car and asked him all these questions, and then asked if he could search the vehicle. It almost feels like it's not a request, you know? And so 20 minutes later, you know, the cars, you know, has been searched by the law enforcement, and it just creates an ill feeling between community members who are really doing nothing wrong, because I'm sure all of you at one point may have forgotten to use your turn signal. But yeah, it creates an ill feeling between community members and law enforcement. So that's, from my perspective, that's why these pretext stops harm that relationship, which we should be working towards building a stronger relationship of trust. Thank you.
Thank you. You have one more?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Ed Rusky. I live in Mill Valley, and I'm a member of MV Free. I just wanted to underscore just a couple of things. One is Tammy's comment that this is not meant as a criticism and to be critical. It's we as a group, and Tammy in particular, are trying to help all the police departments that we've come across have a desire to get better. And this is just more information, and it is not meant to be critical at all. We're trying to help. The second thing I'd like to underscore is that is just about the last point that Tammy made, and that is when a Black person is stopped, they have behind them a couple of things. One is they know the statistics, maybe not numerically, but they know how many Black people are being killed in these altercations and these unfortunate events. The police don't, believe me, they don't come in there and stop them attempting to harm somebody, but it escalates. And this is a bad way for it to escalate. I've spoken to people of color who've said when their teenager goes out, they're terrified they may not come back. I've never worried about that with my children. When they are stopped, there is an emotional blow that occurs in that family and the person who's driving. So I urge you to give serious consideration and to support and adopt the recommendations recommended by Tammy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Really want to thank Tammy and MV Free for the great presentation, and just to kind of ground us in, here's a presentation by a group of community members who care about improving the relationship and who care about people. And it was really different than the presentation we got from law enforcement. So just remember that when you're getting the presentations, they have a different experience, a different perspective, and your job is to bring the community perspective in and do things that support the community while also understanding how to support the police department and their perspective. I hope that, like last time when you were excited to support recommendations, that you will be excited tonight also to support these recommendations. I love the idea of a pilot project. We can see in the data that people are being harmed by the way that policing is happening, and you have concrete 4 strategies in front of you right now that have been shown in our county, because we all hear all the time, well, Marin is different. Well, San Rafael is different. Well, Novato is different. You know, we like to think that our communities are different and bad things don't happen there, but they do. And you have the data in front of you, both from the police department and from the RIPA data that MV Free analyzed. So please consider tonight supporting all of their recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Guillermo?
Hi, Jason from Gerstle Park. I just want to give you a little experience, you know, from a person who was formerly homeless, you know, and being around people of color who lived outside, and maybe, and it kind of correlates to what happens when somebody's behind a wheel that's, a person of color. There was one time where I was at a local park. I wasn't in the circle of people. I was actually playing fetch with my dog, but police rolled up on the group and immediately started searching people. And the first 3 people that were searched were Black. And so, right away, you could see that there's some targeting going on. And this correlates to people that are behind a wheel. The RIPA data proves it. And so I really would like to see you follow the recommendations by MV Free. They did an amazing job putting this presentation together. And we all want to see a better community. We all want to see people get treated fairly. And I think this plan would be a good start for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Then we're good. I'm going to close public comments. And I'm going to come back to the committee members. Final comments. I'm going to start from my left. I'm going to go from my left with Member Locks.
I thought the presentation was above excellent. And the last comment, I think, summated what I would like to see our committee put forth in motion to support the 4 recommendations.
Thank
That
you.
was succinct.
Thank you, Member Locks. Ruiz? Good?
Thank you again for the presentation. It was just as at the last meeting not the last one, but the one in March where you were here, I was so impressed with the way you used your 2 public minutes and to tell us your whole story. It was, so you're obviously a great tribute to your community for the time that you spend. So thank you very much for that. Just in general, after the presentation in March, I spent some time looking at the policy for bias by proxy in the San Rafael Police Department. And, interesting, these days you just go online and you can find every department, which I did that in Marin that had them online, and was very impressed with some of them. I also met with Chief Navarro of Mill Valley, who I've known for a long time, and we had an excellent conversation about how they worked with you. And in passing, I was with the chief in Tiburon. That was not my intention to be there, but we also chatted with her. And the end result that I had from that is to ask the chief or the San Rafael Police Department to update their policy on bias, because I think, well, they have one. It's certainly not as full and meaningful as the one, and I know you like Mill Valley, but I like Sausalito's. It's very, very clear. So when it's time, I would be making a motion to, at minimum, update the policy. And I see that we had a sample one here, but I think it's up to the chief to figure out how it would be. But I think everybody agrees, or might agree, that it's would be a good thing. The next thing I have is, and this is back to the definition of pretext stop. It's my brain from the work I used to do. I get, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're saying that pretext stops are any equipment violation or administrative violation. Is that correct? Not moving violation. Okay, so that's one thing. So to me, that's it's like a ticket violation, as opposed to me, a pretext violation. A pretext stop is much different, but that's just my definition, and I'm happy to use yours. The question I have then is, so that it's not really and I'm not trying to be nitpicky, I'm just trying to figure out how it works. So it's not really the officer's intent that he or she is looking for something else. It's just that they use the opportunity when they make the stop to see if there's anything else. So for me, it's how do you differentiate a traffic stop when there is a reasonable suspicion that there might be another crime committed versus an officer who sees a traffic, an issue?
Can I just, Member
Yeah,
Kamina,
you-
I'm sorry. We would like it if you want to answer that question. Could you come up to the mic so it
I'm
can be
sorry.
recorded? Thank you.
Or maybe Lieutenant Everly can answer it. I'm just curious how it would work, that's all.
Sure.
So it just, can you repeat the question? Just so,
Long, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
So how do you differentiate, how would one, not you, but how would one differentiate when you're doing data if the officer had in his mind, or her mind, I have to say, when the traffic stop was made, to look for something else versus an officer who's seeing a traffic violation like that might end up being a danger to someone else?
that's the point, is that
guess
we're
how-
not going into their minds. It's just a clear, clean rule that says, and different jurisdictions, include different offenses, right? I will say, for example, in the chart that your officers provided, they included more things in pretext stops than I do. I don't include headlights out because I think that's a moving violation. But in any event, when you draft these policies, you sit down with your law enforcement and you say, which offenses in our jurisdiction are having this disparate impact? The great majority of them are expired registration. But what you're saying is you tell the officers you don't have to make the decision because we are no longer doing stops for these administrative things. Now, you can make a stop based on a reasonable suspicion of criminal conduct, and that's what officers do all the time. And in fact, under RIPA, they categorize that. They're charting it. If they make a stop based on a reasonable suspicion, like, well, I'm sure the officers could give me some good examples, but, even I smell drugs or I smell alcohol on a person in the street. That's a reasonable suspicion. If I see somebody, walking down, say I see some black person walking down the street, not doing anything, no reasonable suspicion. But if you see him looking around the side of the house, a darkened house, and there's behavior that gives rise to a reasonable suspicion. And that's when, for example, officers know that they can do a Terry stop, they can do a frisk, all those things that you're familiar with. And they are now, it's not like you're inventing anything, they are now tracking those reasonable suspicion stops by RIPA. They're in the data. Oh, sure.
Thank you. I do want to finish up with the committee members. I will come back to the staff after the committee members, the rest of the committee members' comments. And I will come back to the staff to respond to some of these questions and comments before we're going to take a 2-minute break after that. So I want to continue on with the rest of the committee.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again. I failed to thank you, Tammy, for your great presentation and also engage me this weekend with my questions and comments. For giving me that time. I'm very grateful for that. I don't think we were done on giving our recommendations until we had a thorough presentation and getting a both sides presentation. So I still have my recommendations to give. I want to note that the disparity in engagement with persons of color versus the demographic population of our community is disturbing and beyond inequitable. It should be a call to action to make immediate and actionable improvement. The idea of needing more context and data points for RIPA statistics is meritless, in my opinion. It is a tactic of deflection, deny, and delay. We should be better. It is my recommendation that SRPD move on from the PORAC assessment of RIPA data and accept the numbers as what they are. It's just data. It is my recommendation that SRPD set a goal of matching RIPA data to within the 90th percentile of our population demographics. I appreciate all the initiatives and policies to address racial inequity. I note that many of these have been in place for a while, but they don't seem to be working. We wouldn't have these numbers. It is my recommendation that SRPD has a bias by proxy policy similar to Mill Valley's, and I appreciate seeing Sausalito's now. It looks very robust, and I would like to entertain that one. It is my recommendation that we have a policy limiting equipment and administrative stops. I want to define what that is versus just a blanket pretext. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Anyone?
Yeah, I have a question that, when we talk about the, pre-stack, if we, mention, if we search on the populations on each ratios, so that we can see the appropriate numbers, when they are, stopped by the police, is it appropriate with the populations? How many percentage of each, like Black or Asian or Latinos? So that's what I think. I don't know if I don't see the numbers in here. So
Sorry, Tammy.
You're talking about in terms of the total stop numbers?
Appropriate with the population, like.
Well, I will say that the RIPA stop disparity ratios are calculated. I won't give you the whole formula, but basically it divides the number of stops by the population. So that's how they get to that. If you want to see the exact numbers stopped under each area, I mean, I could certainly provide you if you'd like to see a chart with the actual numbers, I'm happy to provide that. You can also look at the in our resource packet where I said that there's a section on stops by race. That actually shows all the offenses numerically where, but let me just get you the, let me get you a table with all the numbers. I just didn't want it. I love it when people want more information. I've been trying to give you less, but.
Thank you, Tammy. So, yep.
I would say I think most are in agreement with the San Rafael Police Department needing to update their policy. I think the pilot program 1 year would be a great start. And yeah.
Thank you, Alvarez. Yeah, no
No
comments?
No.
Okay. I have one last one before I, ask the staff for response. I'm going to use my 2 minutes. I should be on that side, but I'm the chairperson tonight. I'm the boss, and that doesn't mean like these things happens, to me as well. When I moved here in 2007, my wife is from, I'm not going to use names. It's a city outside, it's in the county, but not San Rafael. So we lived there for 3.5 years, between 2007 and 2010 sometimes. We have 2 girls. Our eldest, blonde, look like a white kid. It's already a problem, me walking around with her. So I got stops every single time we step out of the house. It was explained to me, I I kept my frustration level because I was with my kid. But it was bad. I never show reactions. You know, I bite it down and went home and yell in the shower or go for a drive and turn the music up and yell at myself, you know. But these things happens. And these are one of the reasons why I want to do this kind of stuff. From, you know, a public point of view. Work has to be done. You know, it happens to a lot of us, you know. So yeah. And thank you, Tammy, to you and your team. Thank you so much for the presentation. Very helpful. I'm sure we'll look into it. We'll consider the recommendations. Thank you. So now I'm gonna come back to the staff to see if any of you guys, Chief Spiller, any.
Yeah, I'll just echo the sentiment of the community and thank Tammy and her group for returning to a second PAC meeting at the invitation of the chair and presenting, you know, a very articulate, well thought out message, including the content. And as a 37, almost 38-year cop, I appreciate your opening salvo of this isn't necessarily directed at, you know, or intending to, you didn't use the word demonize, but that's what's scrolling around in my head. So the staff doesn't have any comments or response. This is a secondary presentation, so we'll just leave it with the committee at this point, unless you have any specific questions.
Okay. I'm gonna ask the committee one last time. I know like we're looking at the recommendations. I don't know if this is a good time to talk about, you know, considering these recommendations. I know some of you agree to maybe, you know, put something forward like let's say the 1-year pilot, you know, try it out. Because it's, you know, we'll see if it fits this community or not. You know, there's always a learning curve somewhere. If it doesn't work, we'll try and fix it. If it works, hey, bingo, you know. But I'll come back to, I know Member Locke's got her hand up.
Oh, are you coming back to me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, okay. As I said, that I'm recommending that there be a motion to accept the 4 recommendations by this committee. And in so saying, our recommendation, the committee's recommendations to support these recommendations would be something that we would take forward to the city council for that to be implemented, such as a pilot study or maintaining the statistics. That would be something that we would be recommending that be followed up as a recommendation, because that's going to take money and, you know, resources and so forth to actually do that. So I just wanted the committee to understand that us supporting these recommendations is not like we're moving the earth, but that we are in fact making a recommendation of how to move forward in being transparent and accountable, as well as our police officers being transparent and accountable. We also have to be that way as well. So I am not the chair, but my next statement would be to call the question.
Yeah, I know it has. Yeah.
My thought is, since there are 4 separate recommendations, in my mind, rather than having a group vote on all of them, perhaps just to take one at a time. And my motion I do move that we ask the chief to update the bias by proxy policy and that whole policy to more clearly follow either the Sausalito or the Mill Valley program. I think that would be a very easy beginning. And so that's my motion for now.
So there's a motion to update the bias by proxy, and we need a
bias
second there, the bias by proxy.
Chair, I'll second that motion.
Okay,
I will call a vote.
I know, I'm looking at you, sorry.
I have the mic now. I just want to take a second. Thank you for sharing your story, Chair Tokolahi. That was very brave of you and courageous. But I will take the vote. Member Alm,
Aye.
Member Alvarez,
Aye.
Member Kamina, Member Nguyen,
Approve.
Member Ruiz, Chair Tokolahi,
Aye.
and Member Valdez.
Aye.
Okay. So we have, they've all agreed. Okay. I'm gonna call 2 minutes break while we transitions to our next presentation, and then. What,
There's 3 more recommendations.
sorry, I'll take it back, my bad. We also have a few recommendations from a committee member too. Did you want to do that together with?
Chair, my recommendations were of my own opinion, and by bylaws, that's what I would like to refer to, just as my own recommendations and have that put to record.
Yeah, if I could just clarify, we will take what everybody, all the members of the PAC said tonight, and we'll record that. That'll be recorded in the annual report. If you'd like to make a separate and further recommendation on a vote, you could do that as well.
Yeah. Okay, so we have one recommendations, a motion and pass. Do we have another a second one? Did you want to put that into a motion, the recommendation of the?
Yeah.
She's putting you on the spot. For the 1-year pilot?
Member Alvarez, you just have to hit your button, I'm sorry, and so we can hear.
Wait, but I don't know how.
You could say, I'd like to make a motion on doing a 1-year pilot study from the recommendations from the Mill Valley Free Report.
ME3.
Wait, okay. I would like to make a motion for the one pilot program.
There you go, you got it. There's a motion, there's a second motion, recommending a 1-year pilot, with these recommendations with the ME3. Second. That's 2. Do we have another one?
You just need,
Sorry.
I'll call the vote.
Sorry. Wait,
You,
I'm gonna go back to him to take the vote on that, on the second one.
The point of order.
To discuss it first.
The second, you mean like with
I'm
the
sorry,
second
I-
recommendations?
Yeah, the motion that's on the floor.
Yeah.
I just,
Okay.
I have a comment about it, which is that I'm certainly not opposed to that idea, but I think it would be very helpful if we could perhaps at the next meeting, hear from the chief what particular items should be included in the pilot, rather than just making it a general claim. That's my thought, to make it more specific, but it's certainly up to the committee.
Chief?
So if you want to return to a future meeting to get feedback from the chief on a potential pilot, we can do that pending the work plan. But I think this body is going to have to make some decisions about the scheduled work plan for this group. As Lieutenant Everly mentioned, if you want to make recommendations collectively or individually to be captured in our annual reporting to the council, that's certainly an option. If there's something more critical that this body wants to advance to the council, I would recommend that the chair take that on with the liaison to this committee.
Yeah. Oh, you good? Okay, so I'm gonna go back to
So we could
to-
either call a vote or we can record everybody's statement. If you want to continue on the vote, we can, it's going to be, regardless, everything that you say tonight will be captured in the annual report. You will also be given opportunity to amend, edit, add at any time to the annual report. We'll give you, usually a month to look at it beforehand. So it's up to you, Chair. If you want to do 3 separate votes tonight, that's up to you, or we have already recorded everybody's comments on what they support.
We're just gonna do vote. We'll
Okay.
vote on the second one.
Okay?
Yeah.
So there is a motion and a second for recommending the 1-year pilot program. Member Alm,
I vote aye.
Member Alvarez,
Aye.
Member Kamina,
Actually, no, only because it's vague.
Member Nguyen,
Aye.
Member Ruiz, Chair Togolahi,
Aye.
and Member Valdez.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. And I believe there's one more, right? The motion passed.
There are 4 recommendations, Chair.
Yeah.
If you want to give staff direction just to,
Yes, because I think we should, for the rest of the other recommendations, I think we should just do them all at the same time and then do one vote at the end. Yeah,
there's the recommendation 3 is use performance metrics to monitor the progress on the recommended RIPA strategies. And recommendation 4 is to establish an annual RIPA equity assessment. If somebody wants to make a motion to recommendation number 3, we can keep it easy and refer to all the recommendations based on the Mill Valley Free Report, and then we can more expeditiously move through this process.
should we, yeah? To, what sounds good? To
Someone-
move to-
someone
to
should make
just
a-
one by,
Someone should make a motion to recommend recommendation number 3 from the Mill Valley Free Report. Sorry.
Chair, I'll make that recommendation to move forward with recommendation 3 by MV Free.
any seconds? Okay,
Second.
yep.
Member Kamina. Member Alm,
Aye.
Member Alvarez,
Aye.
Member Kamina, Member Ruiz, Chair Tokolahi,
Aye.
and Member Valdez.
Aye.
Thank you.
Did we miss one?
I missed Member Nguyen?
No.
I am so sorry.
Aye.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
And we have the last one. Someone, we'll go through the same process. Someone will have to motion. Do you
Number
mind
4
reading
is
up number-
establishing an annual RIPA equity assessment.
RIPA assessment.
Chair, I'll make a motion for number 4, annual equity assessment.
Any second?
Second.
Member Kamina seconds. I will call the roll. Member Alm,
Aye.
Member Alvarez,
Aye.
Member Kamina, Member Nguyen,
Ayes.
Member Ruiz, Chair Tokolahi,
Aye.
and alternate member Valdez.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Now we're gonna take 2 minutes break while we transition to our final presentation tonight. Thank you.
Ella tiene que tener una relación de verdad con el pero el que fue como un incidente, solo
Oh my God, ew.
It's so hot, huh? Melting, huh?
I brought me some candy because I'm hungry.
Candy is,
Well, just like a sweet candy, so I like sweet.
when you're hungry, you eat something, so. You eat the candy, it's just a sweet.
Yeah, but it like wakes you up. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
I think we're ready to continue. Sorry, guys. We're reconvening. Yes. So our next presenter, they're here with the homelessness update. And I'm gonna let either the staff or themselves introduce themselves and
Personas sin hogar, sin vivienda.
okay, hang on 1 minute.
One moment, we are toggling the interpreters.
Okay.
Marina and Andrew, you're now in your other channels.
All set? Good evening, everybody. It's nice to be back. Lynn Murphy, I'm the mental health liaison here at the San Rafael Police Department. And I am here with Daniel Cooperman from, I'll let him say his full title because I know I'm going to mess it up. We are going to be doing an overview, a 6-month evaluation of our camping ordinance that went into effect in October of 2024. We'll give an update on our sanctioned camping area, which is located on the Mahone Creek Path off of Lincoln Avenue. And we're also going to talk about our proposed amendment to our camping ordinance.
Member
You
Locke,
mean
if
like
you-
their
we-
presentation?
Member Lux, just if you could, if you're going to speak, could you press your button? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The subtitles, I mean, do we need
Yes,
to
we can
have
put them
that?
back up. The last group requested that we take them down because it was interfering with her graph. So we can
Oh,
put them right back up.
Yeah.
thank you.
You good?
All right, I will pass it over to Daniel Cooperman.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Daniel Cooperman, the Community Services Director here in San Rafael. So just a brief overview of our enforcement of our camping regulations. The city addresses our violations in 2 primary ways. The first and more common involves violations such as setbacks, size maximums, and the construction of illegal structures. In these cases, San Rafael PD reviews known encampment areas and issues a 48-hour notice. After the 48-hour period, debris removal is carried out. In some cases, citations may be issued. The second type of enforcement occurs when individuals camp in prohibited areas. For these violations, a 24-hour notice to vacate is, oh, yep. You want me to, okay, how's that? Well, this doesn't move. All right, here we go again. The second type of enforcement occurs when individuals camp in prohibited areas. These violations, a 24-hour notice to vacate is issued, followed by a 48-hour violation process if the area is not vacated. And so this was our, this was our 6-month look back since the ordinance was put into effect. And I will note in April, the council adopted banning camping in all parks, which did not affect anyone, but it was part of the process with our homelessness solutions working group as one of the main drivers that the community, the overwhelming majority of the community wanted to see.
So our sanctioned camping area, or the SCA, is going extremely well. This week, we added 4 new campsites at the SCA because the demand is far exceeding our ability to place people in the camp. So we now have 54 sites. We are currently at 48 people residing at the campsite. We're hoping to fill those remaining 5 spaces. We like to keep one camping cubicle open. We call them camping cubicles because they are 10-foot by 10-foot rooms without a domed roof. So it feels much more like an actual room rather than being in a tent. Those were just completed today. That's why those are empty as of right now. I have an update on this. We have placed 2 people into permanent supportive housing. That one person who was actively searching has successfully found a place and has moved in. Our case management services have also increased because we have a newly hired case manager who is actively working. So we are now above that 60% of participants who have a case manager. We still have 2 additional case managers and 1 outreach worker still to be hired. 5 participants have gained employment. We have an AA meeting on site. We have people doing art activities on site. FS Global has been incredibly responsive because we have weekly town halls that are run by FS Global, who is our program management team, who are on site 24/7. So at the town halls, they listen to the concerns of the people at the site, things that they would like to see different, things that they would like to have more of, or anything that people would like to bring up. The town hall is the opportunity for them to do so. We're going to be implementing a movie night on site now that the weather is warmer. We've brought games onto the site, board games. The kitchen area has been expanded, so people do have the ability to cook in the communal kitchen. We have a very large air conditioning unit that will be set up in the communal tent when the temperatures rise. There was a heating unit set up for the winter that will be switched out probably fairly soon based on how warm it's been. So people will have access to an air-conditioned space on site. We also have a new behavioral health van that just started from the Ritter Center. This is in addition to their mobile medical van, which goes on site once a month. The behavioral health van is focused solely on behavioral health needs. And that just came online this month. So it's a great resource for people, not just for people at the sanctioned camping area, but for people throughout Marin County.
All right. As we talk about our sanctioned camping site and our camping ordinance here, A good backdrop and context is the lack of shelter availability within the county. Historically, Marin County is responsible for providing shelter for our unhoused population. As you can see from this chart, Marin County is at the bottom, close to the very bottom within the Bay Area for shelter availability. As we've seen across the county and certainly across the state, people tightening up camping regulations. The lack of shelter is a huge part of that. So we just wanted to demonstrate what residents within Marin County and with San Rafael are facing in terms of lack of total shelter availability. As you can see, we're, I think, the third lowest within the within the Bay Area. And so then going back to our camping ordinance, this is actually no longer a proposed amendment. The council did adopt, as I mentioned earlier, to not allow camping within the city parks. Go ahead. Okay. Part of this process was obviously community outreach. I think when we're ever trying to talk about ordinances and policy decisions within the community and how we serve our unhoused population, community outreach is vital. So as you can see here, we did a full walkthrough with all of our downtown businesses. We wanted to get their perspective. We also held three sessions, right?
Yes.
3 sessions with volunteers who formed our homelessness solutions working group. We were looking for sort of more positive solutions-based outcomes from that group. At the end, really, the community solely wanted to talk about our camping ordinance. And so that's sort of how we got to these decisions here. And then, as always, we have our End Homelessness at cityofsanrafael.org, which goes directly to me, which gets a lot of emails and inquiries from community members, both positive and negative feedback. So we're always open for more public comment and feedback. And that's it for us tonight.
Thank you. We'll come back to committee members for questions. I'm going to start from my right side. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question about the ban. You said that is there once a month. My question was about the behavioral ban and the medical ban. They are on the site once a month.
Correct. They have a schedule where they go to different sites throughout the county. So they go up to the Homeward Bound campus in Novato. They'll go out to Fairfax, West Marin. So they really are trying to reach every part of the county where some people are not, they don't have as much access to the services that we have here in downtown San Rafael.
Thank you.
Questions?
No questions, but thank you for your presentation.
Anyone going?
No, I don't.
No
have a question.
questions? Al?
I have no questions, and I thank you for your presentation.
I just have a question. Thank you for coming and explaining all of that to us and giving us the update. I just have one question is, are there any children involved in the program that you have?
No, it is all single adults. Now, that being said, there are people who are coupled, but they each have their own separate camping cubicle.
So in general, have you a sense of homeless children that might be, even though they're not being served by your station?
We are not seeing homeless children. Homeless children, are you asking unaccompanied
No,
children or children
With families?
Okay, they would be referred to Homeward Bound for the family shelter.
Luis, you have questions? for
Sorry,
him?
I try to translate in Spanish. Thank you so much for the presentation. Welcome again. I like the part when you said you have new areas for them. you implement new areas. My question is, you said they have a movies, they have a something fun things, but how about if they work during the day, some of them? Oh,
Some people do work, yes.
oh, okay.
And then just to be clear, the movies are in addition to the case management services. So we have an on-site office where people can meet with their case manager. They can work on getting the documents that they need in order to get housing. So it's not all, oh, we're having a movie, we have cornhole, we have games. It's really a place where people can get connected to their necessary resources so they can get into housing. But we're adding other fun things as well.
I think they are happy right now because they have a new things.
I think that people are happy. I get phone calls every week, not just from San Rafael, but from people throughout the county asking if they could move into the sanctioned camping area.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Member Locks?
Thank you for your report. It was excellent. And I look forward to having you back next year with an update as to what's going on. We want to get ongoing reports about the encampment as well as other unhoused situations throughout San Rafael. Thank you both very much.
Thank you. I have one questions. I've seen like just outside the building, there were folks used to live outside here, camp outside. I don't know what's happening to those folks.
Yeah, that is a good question. So we have, there was an order from the fire department that we needed to remove all vegetation from within 5 feet of the building. So there has been an extensive project of tree trimming, tree removal. All those beautiful Japanese maples that I happen to love have been removed because of the 5-foot mandate. So the people who were camping here were notified at the beginning of the month that there was going to be this tree work going on, and we passed out notices, so they had it in writing about the work. We were able to offer spaces at the sanctioned campsite. We moved 2 of the folks from City Hall into the sanctioned camping area. Some people did not want that. I offered referrals to the shelter at Jonathan's place. Again, that was, some people wanted that referral. Some people don't want that referral for a variety of reasons. So that was effective as of this morning.
Just for further clarification on that. So this is part of the Zone Zero program through the Fire Authority. We've been doing a lot of, the fire department and our city organization has been doing a lot of outreach and a lot of community education on fire protection and eliminating those fuels, particularly that 5-foot area, which is the Zone Zero. And I think we were kind of putting our money where our mouth was in terms of protecting City Hall and pulling that overgrowth back. And unfortunately, it impacted a few unhoused individuals who were nearby City Hall.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna open up for public comments for our homeless presentation.
Hello, everybody. I just want to make sure that the PAC members are aware of the new model ordinance that Governor Newsom has now proposed. It talks about not criminally punishing people if there is nowhere for them to go. It talks about, not moving people unless there's adequate indoor shelter. But in the same breath, he talks about, talks about people, cities having the ability to move people every 72 hours to get off the streets or parks or whatnot. And that really is a form of punishment because there's nowhere for people to go. As was pointed out earlier, there's a lack of shelter beds in Marin. There's really not much vouchers coming in right now. There's no affordable housing. There's skyrocketing rents. There's not too much homeless prevention. So people are falling into homelessness every day, even though after the good numbers of people that have been housed over the last 8 years. And so, you know, when the Supreme Court flips grants pass and allowed cities, you know, to criminalize homelessness, a few members of the city council seem keen on doing that. And although Rachel Kurtz has been a very staunch supporter of Unhoused. And so I just want you all to keep it on the radar. If the city gets it in their head that they're going to enforce what this new model ordinance is, pushing people to move every 72 hours is not going to do any good. It's not going to keep people, it's not going to get anybody in a house or in a shelter. And so it's just another form of punishment. And I would hope that you would recommend that the city not do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Any other comments?
Evening again, Steve Bingham, San Rafael. Interesting report, and I admire the work done at the authorized site. But the elephant in the room, there are 48 people there, and where are all the other people? And we've now outlawed camping in any of the parks. Frankly, as a citizen of or resident of Marin with its high fire danger, what the result of that is going to be is people moving into the woods and creating a fire risk. And I do not understand humanely and politically why the city would do that. And of course, that's not your affair because it's been done. But since this is the Police Advisory Committee, I certainly hope, and I have heard before, that there has not been any enforcement of camping that has been exercised by the police department. And I hope that is the case. And from a long experience working with homeless groups in the city, congregate shelter outside with other people is the safest way for unhoused people to live. And we should encourage it. And frankly, I would hope the community would encourage people to occupy the parks in groups and challenge the police department to simply not enforce the law because there's no place to live. Remember your history. 1906, San Francisco earthquake. What did they do? They set up hundreds of tents in Golden Gate Park. What is wrong if we can do that for the best residents of San Francisco, but we won't do that for other unhoused people? The homeless crisis is an earthquake. It's equivalent to an earthquake, and it's ongoing.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
That's a tough act to follow. I know that we all don't necessarily know the answer other than get everyone a house to this ongoing problem. I think that saying that banning camping in parks didn't affect anyone is a little tone deaf. You don't actually know that that didn't affect anyone. Like Steve said, people living in parks create community. I would say that the cubes, the camping cubes, actually feel more like cells than rooms from my perspective. It doesn't feel homey. And these people aren't camping. This is their home. They are unhoused. This is where they live. So I encourage us to think more about the words that we use. Tightening up camping regulations is really criminalizing homelessness. And I was wondering some just solid questions about 60% have case managers. We have 2 more case managers to hire. Does that mean the other 40% need to wait until 2 more people are hired? What does the timeline look like for that? Are all the people with case managers on a pathway to a house? I have heard that FS Global isn't great, and that people don't really feel safe without security there, that tents have been tossed and things have been thrown in wet water that can't be dried. And then I would just say from an equity perspective, the activities sound interesting, and did the people who live there ask for them, or did other people think that like movie night was a good idea, or did the residents say, could we please have a movie night? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, one more.
Good evening again. Heidi kind of went over some of the questions and concerns that I had as far as these activities. Is this something that the community residents are requesting, or is this just, are these just things that are thought of to make the encampment look good? Also, one of the council members brought up families. And yes, Homeward Bound does have a family shelter. It only allows for 9 families at any given time throughout the whole county. That is and I can speak from experience. I was homeless on the streets until I was 8.5 months pregnant, until I finally got into the family shelter. So my question would be, what is the possibility of opening up an encampment for families? Because especially kids being the most vulnerable population of the unhoused community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments? No. Thank you. I'm going to close public comments, and then I'm going to come back to the staff and maybe Lynn and Daniel, see if you can respond to some of these questions.
The first question was about, that I'll respond to, is about the activities. We're really trying to run this with a human-centered design, client-centered. That is the purpose of the town halls. I do not attend the town hall meetings. It's the opportunity for, they're on site. FS Global is on site. I have not heard one complaint about FS Global. And the claim that things are, tents are tossed is, in my opinion, completely untrue. I have seen notes that the people residing in the camp have sent to, or written and given to FS Global, thanking them for being as compassionate and kind as they have been. I personally have witnessed many acts of kindness from FS Global. Yeah, people have asked for movies. We've talked about what kind of movies they would want to see. If they don't want movies, then we don't have to do movies. But people have also asked for a dance party, and FS Global has said, sure, we could do that. We could set up a little stage and put up a speaker. So it's, again, we're trying to make this as collaborative as possible. We don't know the answers. We're not living there. It's really important to hear from the people who are living there what they want, which is how the communal kitchen came about, which is how the different cooking utensils have come about, the dishwashing station. It's all client driven. So this is not a top-down operation. As far as the family shelter, I mean, if we could open more transitional sites like this, I would be all for it. I mean, financially speaking and space-wise, I don't know how feasible that would be, but I think it would be great based on the experience that we're having here. Yeah, but it's all about land and money. And did I? Okay, yes. So that's 60% is not accurate because there is now a new case manager on site. So that person, okay, I was just told it is still 60, but she did take on an additional 12 clients.
I'll just jump in real quick. So the county is actually contracting those case managers as part of the state funding we received. There was a little delay, which is why we are where we are right now. So from the city's perspective, completely out of our control, unfortunately, but they are recruiting, they are close to hiring. So we'll see that program be fully staffed pretty quickly.
And I also want to add that FS Global is also offering case management, which is outside the scope of their contract, but they are regularly taking people to doctor's appointments, to the DMV, to court dates. When we ask them to fulfill a service, I want to make sure that you can hear this, that FS is going above and beyond. They're just doing on-site services. They have multiple vehicles, and if somebody needs something, they will, at the drop of a hat, transport people to something that they need.
Thank you. Anybody else? We good? Okay, I want to come back to the committee members. Just one last round of comments regarding the presentation. Anybody? Yeah.
No, just thank you for the update, and I think you are doing a good job with you have and you can do, so thank you.
Thank you. Alvarez? Member Nguyen?
Do have a comment. Thank you, Chair. And thank you again for that presentation. For me, it's how do we ensure homelessness is not treated as a criminal issue? I still question the appropriateness of this being a topic of discussion within the PAC. I don't really see the value. I don't think we're the appropriate body to be addressing issues of homelessness. That's my comment.
Thank you. Comment? No? No other comments?
No.
You good? Okay. We want to thank you guys for your time in waiting. Thank you for the work that you guys have done and on it. I know it's a tough situation for all of us. I know I've been there 3.5 years. Not easy, but at the end of the day, when we house someone or we put someone into the shelter or family, that's a knock on the door. It's like, yes, one step forward, one baby steps. I know we might have to keep going with this issue. We'll see. We'll talk to the staff after this, but thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, I want to come back to, this is staff liaison report.
And staff has no report tonight.
Okay. Committee reports. I'm gonna start from my left. Member Locks.
Never. Thank you. The form that I passed to everyone, I just wanted you to have this informational, and particularly this is from the ACLU news bulletin that I received, and it just happened to have a summary of 2 bills, California bills, one on housing justice, of which we had a topic on lack of housing, and the other was on banning police misconduct, of which, as an oversight committee, that's something that we might want to consider. And so I've provided this informational sheet because it talks about the banding of the misconduct with the non-disclosure agreements, and so that there will be more public access to serious misconduct records, which is something that we might want to consider as part of what we do, having that kind of access, and affirming the existence and requirements for agencies to report misconduct to the commission on police officer standards and training, which is post.ca.gov. So it's an informational, and at the top are the, our California Assemblyman for this area and our California Senator for this area. So you can make calls to their local office and say that you support these, two, laws going forward. That's my report. Thank you. And
Thank-
did Marilyn leave? Oh,
No.
are you gonna report on the one we went to together?
Oh,
Yes? No, you can do it. No, stop that. You forgot the name?
yeah.
Marilyn will be reporting on activity that we both were in attendance, and so was, she was there with you, right? Oh, Darlene. Okay, well, they can report. Human trafficking in Marin. They were present at that presentation, and I'll let them discuss that.
I know there were quite a few of us over on that. I was in the same one too.
Oh, you were there too? Oh, okay.
Remember Royce?
I didn't see you.
Thank you. Last month, I can say nothing because it's closed the meeting.
Because it's
But-
what?
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't say nothing because the meeting is closed. But guys, I need to tell you, in February, our community, the most Latinos, we start, what is the name? What is the name? Every Wednesday we take,
She's making reference to our Spanish Community Academy.
yeah, and we finish, yeah. We finish in April. We learning a lot things what the police they doing. It's very good. I recommend to you. It's coming one more in English. And it's very good, very, very good, guys. It's different position. You can see the police and I like it. And when, I attended with her this meeting and we attended with Carla to the fair in Canal Alliance. We have a fair. We attended this. We was volunteer. Yeah. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
So the Community Academy, offered both in Spanish and in English, is a 10-week program where participants have the opportunity to learn virtually everything about their police department. And we consider it our flagship outreach program. So we highly recommend those interested to participate, and more information can be found on our website at srpd.org.
Was it well attended?
Waiting list every time. And
Oh,
the
wow.
last academy was the full Spanish academy. And I think we had 30 participants and
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
It was
that's
a lot.
awesome. Thank you, guys. Remember coming?
Thank you so much. Before I give my comments, I just have one thing that I forgot to ask if we could do, since we passed a motion for a pilot project for the chief. And my nay was based on the fact that it was kind of vague in terms of what his instruction might be. Can we schedule a time for him to come back and give us an idea of what might be a good way to do that? So we could have more.
I'd
voice.
recommend that the chair could reach out to staff and
Ah.
we could probably talk offline about how we
Okay.
could.
I just
do
wanted
next
you
steps.
to know that I'm interested in that.
Reach out to them.
That's perfect. Well, that's all I had to say. So, first, if you believe what you read in the IJ, I'm very glad to see that there will be more attention to the food vendors in the canal. I was very pleased to see that in the paper. And as for me, I participated in the 25th anniversary of the Jeanette Brandy Children's Center, which is where we interview kids that are suspected of being abused. And it was well attended and very celebratory because it's been there for so long, and I'm pleased. I was unable to go to the Human Trafficking Coalition event at Dominican, which was, I've actually read the book. It was wonderful. But I had a family issue, so I couldn't attend, but I'm glad you all did. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Sure.
Al?
Chair, first I have a point of order. When we began this committee, we originally had intended for the public to give open expression at the end of the committee meeting. And I note that we are now speaking to an empty room. City Council gives their staff reports at the beginning of their meeting. I would like to make a motion that we move our reports to the beginning of the meeting. I am making a motion to move our
In-
committee member reports to the beginning of meeting.
Before we,
I w-
I want,
Oh,
yes.
oh, so, to the chair, to Member Alm, I'm not sure if taking action, I guess the question is, this is a procedural action in terms of modifying the agenda, but the last time we modified the agenda to move the open expression to the beginning, it was an agendized discussion. So, unfortunately, we don't have the benefit of the city clerk here, but I'm wondering if we would need to agendize a discussion about the order of the agenda for a future meeting. So that could be something that we could.
Can I make a motion to agendize that?
Well, because it's not fair to the public, so everything has to, but the chair could reach out to the staff liaisons offline, just like for the things, and we could discuss.
Okay.
And sometimes there's 30 people in the room, sometimes there's 4 or 5, and sometimes there's 0, but there are participants monitoring now, and there are people who watch asynchronously. So
I do note that, but I would like to the public who is here to actually there's been comment that they would like to see action, and this is our opportunity, and they're not present. And I'd want to call out that this is the second meeting in a row where public has left while we've been giving our report.
So just for clarification, you're not talking about the open public comment time, but rather our reports.
I'm referencing that we actually amended our schedule based off of that feedback. I'm giving the feedback now that I would like to be able to move our report to the beginning of the meeting, not unlike what City Council does.
Okay.
But I still have my report to give.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I want to note that I went on a ride along, and I think we all did, and I definitely want to report that out. And first thing I do want to talk about is our police cars are slow dogs. And if I were to make a recommendation, those hybrid things can't even move on their own weight. And the reason I would recommend that we move to automobiles that handle better and move faster. And the reason I make that recommendation is we actually responded to a Code 3 incident, and we could barely get out of our own way, in my own opinion, that the thing doesn't move. Unfortunately, it was lights and sirens. It was a pedestrian hit by a vehicle on Lincoln Avenue. That poor person was thrown a long distance, and it reiterates again for me that I really wish traffic and safety was an issue that we brought agendized within this group. Also, I really want to call out the officer Ortiz who I was with. I think they were an amazing asset to our community. We had a very engaged conversation. I really appreciated everything we talked about. Secondly, we only had 2 engagements, but our first one, we encountered youth members ditching school outside of the mall, drinking alcohol. And for a committee member who has the subcommittee assignment of youth, that was very interesting to be engaged in that interaction. There was essentially 3 choices that could have been done: call the parents, issue a citation, or go to juvenile hall. And the action that the police officer chose was to call the parents, and I really appreciated how all that went down. Also want to note that myself and member Alvarez, we are on the subcommittee of youth and policing, and we did, and this is our year of engagement, and we engaged the Marin County Youth Commission in a listening and roundtable discussion last week, and we had a lot of good information that we took back from that. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Nguyen? Any reports? No. Oh. Member Alvarez?
I attended several. I had the ride along with Officer Mears. And I also was with David, member all, member all, with the discussion with the Marine Community Youth Commission. I was also at the human trafficking in Marin at the Guzman Hall in Dominican University. And I was also volunteering at the Canal Fair.
Ooh, awesome. Thank you.
The same as Darlene and Marilyn, I was at the community fair on the sea level rise section with the city and the staff from Canal Alliance. Also in the fair, with the help of one of the volunteers from Nuestro Canal, Nuestro Futuro, we distribute the packages that you create for the regarding the San Rafael Police Department position on its interaction with ICE. Thank you, Teresa, for printing those out. We had them in Spanish, English, and Vietnamese. And on May 6th, I attended the last of 7 workshops that the city offered in Spanish on housing, tenant protection, and anti-displacement. And I learned a lot from that. And I had my ride-along on April 25th with Officer Santos. We were in the Canal area and in downtown, and it was not busy as I expected because I decided to do the night one, but it was a really good experience. Yeah. I wanted to see some action and no.
I forgot. No, I forgot. I did that too.
That's-
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have a few before we wrap it up. It's just, I'm so grateful to see a lot of our members stepping out, and sort of like heavily, and actively participate in a lot of our communities, events or activities or meetings, you know. It just feels good. When I go to a lot of these community events and I see a lot of you guys over there, I'm like, yes, that's what we need. Also, we don't need to just show up, but to participate in, you know, seeing you guys at the fair, some of these meetings, interact and have conversations with decision makers, you know, in our city, which is great. You know, I'm happy to see that. The ride along, yes. I'm gonna be dead serious, honest. I forgot her name, but she was really good. You guys know her. I think what I learned from them is, and I hope communities, and if you're watching and listening, when you put on that uniform, it's someone else. But when you talk to them, especially doing the ride along, they share the same exact stories as us, you know? It's the uniform that sort of like create a little barrier or something different. It brings a different value, you know, brings different responsibilities to them when they put on that uniform. Outside of that, they are the same as us, you know, and I think listening to their stories and when you relate to them, I wish a lot of the public could hear their stories, you know, something like that. My only other updates, we met with the mayor, since she's the liaison for all the city boards, committees, and commissions. We did sort of like a check-in with the mayor, the vice chair, Chief Spiller was there too, and also another member from the city staff. City manager. It was really good. Check-in. She wanted to see how we doing, you know, the process. There was, you know, a lot of discussions on how we wanted to see the committees moving forward and do stuff within our realm of this is what we can do. And I just have to tell you guys that we're moving towards something good. You know, we just have to play our role, play your role. We combine those roles, we'll be fine. We're doing great. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up with that check-in. With that, if there's nothing else, we good? Okay, I'm gonna adjourn this meeting at 8:24.